we are live. If you are a US citizen or green card holder living abroad, have you faced challenges or do you have questions about paying your taxes back in the US? And if you're not, I want to share how the US is one of only two countries where their citizens and green card holders who live abroad have to pay taxes. And today I'm really excited to have RoseMarie. RoseMarie, I should have asked you how to pronounce your last name earlier, but I'm going to try Guaglieri.
That's close enough. Okay, so here's the deal. This is how you can remember it. It's spelled with two G's. So that G in the middle, it's silent.
Oh, okay.
Right? And so my friends always say to me, that's the only thing about you that's silent.
I love that. So it's Guaglieri. Thank you for sharing that.
There you go.
She is an expat tax manager and business development and partnership development at H&R Block Expat Tax Services. She's also, their organization is also a sponsor of the upcoming the Expat Woman Virtual Summit in May, and she'll also be a speaker at that summit. And I'm really excited to have her here today because I have a lot that I need to learn. Even though I live in the US, maybe someday I'll be an expat living somewhere else and I'll have to pay my US taxes. And I can always refer back to this conversation. So without further ado, RoseMarie, I'm going to have you. First of all, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for sponsoring us. Thank you for being a speaker. I wanted to start with you sharing a little bit more of your background, and also you are an expat, or you were an expat, now you're a repat. So also sharing that because our network are expats. Go ahead.
Okay, no problem. So first of all, you want me to know a little bit about me, right? I am a mom. I'm a single mom. I have a 16-year-old son. So really everything I do is for him, right? You know, I do life with him. He's a great kid. I have a very long history in this industry, this what I call the global mobility space. I don't like to admit this, but I have 30 years at Big Four firm, and I have 4 years with Block. And I've done everything from managing large multinational corporations to small corporations and dealing with individuals. At Block, you already indicated what I do. I'm involved in business development, trying to grow our business organically. I also manage a team of my own, and I also have my own clients. So there's a lot going on. We're very busy. We're gearing up for this tax season.
Let me show myself on screen again. Thank you for that. We have Liv Johnson joining us, and she said she's looking forward to the session. Thank you, Liv. I'm checking our LinkedIn live stream now. If you're watching on YouTube or LinkedIn, just let us know where you're calling in from in the chat. And if you have any questions for RoseMarie, thank you for sharing that, RoseMarie. And so, yeah, let me pull up. I have to pull up my notes. We were talking about earlier, you know, when we have these live conversations, how do we remember everything? So the secret is we have notes that we have to refer to. I have to refer to my questions. I'm actually using StreamYard, so I have it a little easier than RoseMarie because I have the teleprompter right on. You can't see it, but I can see it. And I have my questions.
You're cheating.
I'm cheating, but especially the expat tax questions, I will never remember them. Okay, so yeah, you did share a little bit about your, what you do and you being an expat. I was curious about what were some of the biggest challenges or hurdles you face living abroad.
Okay, so I started my expat journey in my mid-20s. I went to Japan, which you know, when I was going in my mid-20s, it was quite an experience. But it was a beautiful country. It was clean, but there were some challenges. I would say, you know, getting pushed into a subway car with a white men with white gloves was interesting. At that time, being a very vocal, dark-haired, short Italian from New York, didn't really necessarily go over well. Um, so that was a culture shock to me. I was told that if I was tall and blonde, that they would love me, but I wasn't. So it was definitely an experience, but one that I definitely would not have traded. So that was that. And then I later on in my life, I went to London, and I lived on Buckingham Palace Road, and that was really cool. It was kind of cool to say that. The challenge obviously, English wasn't an issue, language wasn't an issue. I'm telling you, the biggest challenge I had was having to navigate at that time. I forget the woman's name. Sally Jessica Parker. It was that show that I won't mention, but it was that show which depicted American women in a certain way. And there were a lot of British men that wanted to test that out. So I will honestly say that was my biggest challenge in London. And then in Switzerland, oh my God, Switzerland! I was in Switzerland in the winter. The Christmas markets were amazing, and I guess the biggest challenge was I was in a small town, Basel, Switzerland, and the biggest challenge was everything closed at like 5:36, and I actually got hospitalized for 6 weeks. So being in a hospital in Switzerland was a little crazy. Nobody spoke English. But good news was the anesthesiologists, they were Dutch. So so I at least, could communicate a little bit. But I was in there for embarrassing, but kidney stones. And the guy that was operating the machinery didn't speak English. He spoke Schweizerdeutsch. I think it's Schweizerdeutsch, right? And but I did get one word right. He went kaputt. So that meant my kidney stone broke. I understood that. So those were my challenges, and of course, missing my family. I was always gone as a single person, so that was some of my challenges.
That's so fascinating. I love that, especially with Japan. I did go to Japan 2 years ago, but I think by then they've stopped pushing people into the train. I don't know. That's what I was afraid of.
It was decades ago, okay, but it was really interesting.
Yeah. So we have Liv. She said she's moving to London in June. She's in the US right now, so definitely Liv, connect with RoseMarie after this, and hopefully, because you're already doing your homework, right? Before moving abroad, you are going to learn about how to pay your taxes when you move to London. We have Camilla joining us from Miami. Camilla has a lot of flags next to her name, so I'm assuming, Camilla, you've lived in many different countries as an expat. And Lana is calling from California. She's considering a move to Philadelphia by the end of this year. Oh, Lana, I know, Lana, I'm sorry to know you're moving from the Bay Area. But so while I'm chatting with RoseMarie, because we were talking about expat hurdles and funny stories, and, which I'm sure at that time you didn't think they were funny, but now in hindsight, they do seem like hilarious. We can laugh at them. Let us know in the comments, in the chat, like what were some experiences or hurdles or challenges you faced either abroad, or if you're an expat in the US, what's something, that you found like hard to deal with initially. For me, it's one of the things was saying hello to people when I walk on the street. In India, we don't make eye contact and look at each other. So it was like really weird to start greeting strangers, making eye contact. Camilla says she's lived in 6 countries. That's very cool, Camilla. I'm sure you have a lot of stories and experiences to share. All right. So with that, I wanted to ask you, RoseMarie, what inspired you to focus on expat taxes and move into this field? Did you do it while you were living in those different countries? That was actually my other question. While we also talk about this, why did you go to these different countries? Was it on work or?
So it was work related. It was definitely work related, and I see my lighting is changing.
Don't worry about it. Your content is so good. So we'll
okay. So first of all, I this was my main first job, and I ended up in one of the big four firms, and I just ended up in this department that started the expat tax practice. We were really did not know what we were doing at the time.
Can I interrupt? Was it HR and H&R
It
Block?
wasn't H&R Block. It was
Oh.
in my initial company.
Okay.
And then so the move to Japan was for work, and the move to London and also to Switzerland was really for work. It was London and Switzerland were more project based. And so they sent me to different countries because they had a need, and I was willing to go. And so I like that aspect about it, right? Because you go where you're needed instead of, wearing a groove where you have a certain job. And so that aspect was great. And who wouldn't want to go, for free to another country?
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I stayed in expat, because if you would have told me that I'd be doing taxes for over 30 years, I would have said no. But there's international taxes and excitement about it, and it's different. Every day is different.
So when your first job and you got into the taxes, you said it kind of moved into that department. So it kind of happened by default. It wasn't like,
Yes.
oh, I have to do taxes, right? Yeah. And
Nope.
now, obviously, you love it because you've been doing it for 30 years. That's a testament to, yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I just I'm getting a few more comments here. So Rosalind saying she's listening in from Virginia. She's a repatriate from the Netherlands, and she's going to be a future repeat expat. I think Camilla says she has a lot of hurdles and challenges and stories about living in 6 countries. Rosalind said taxes was one of the most difficult things for me to reconcile upon repatriating. Happy to support this live. And Lana, driving in Switzerland, a wrong turn on an empty side street cost us €600, and that was 20 years ago. Transportation is indeed, public transportation is the best transportation solution in Switzerland. But actually, I got pickpocketed on a train in Switzerland, which I never expected, thinking it's like such a fancy, rich country. I lost euros, dollars, and Swiss francs, right? Yeah, all of it. So again, perception is, you can never assume anything. You always, I think, have to be very wary in a lot of your surroundings. And
absolutely.
I've been to from India. I've only been pickpocketed once in India, but my first time to Switzerland and I got pickpocketed. So.
Yeah, well, I had that problem in New York, so.
Yeah, no, New York you can understand, or Italy, but like Switzerland, you just assume, especially the trains are so expensive. But I learned my lesson. So so with that, let me go on to my next question.
So what's interesting, people are talking about repatriates coming back from being overseas. Obviously, we handle that. The other thing that we handle is inbound, people who come from foreign locations and come into the U.S. and become a U.S. resident. That's a really difficult transition when somebody comes from, let's say India, like you did, or, comes from, Hong Kong, and they're going to be working in the U.S. for a couple of years. We handle those people as well. So it's not just people abroad. I call them impatriates.
I didn't know that. That's really good to know. So I'm glad to share that. So anyone has any questions, whether you're moving abroad from the US or you even if you're repatriating or you've moved to the US, like Lana, I know Lana's originally from Eastern Europe or maybe Russia, and she's moved to the US. So it'd be interesting to hear what some of your challenges and hurdles were with the expat taxes. Or if you have any questions for RoseMarie, just because it's so complicated and something that many of us don't even want to deal with. That's why I'm so impressed to see so many women joining us live, because this is it's not like a fun. Maybe it's fun for you, RoseMarie, because you've been in it for 30 years, but it's so important, especially for people who are globally mobile, to get the taxes right. So maybe we start with, how does H&R Block, you shared a little bit, how they help people, but how do they help expats with the taxes differently from traditional tax services, or other organizations?
Yeah. So if you're going to compare us to like a traditional domestic accountant here in the US, the clear difference is the experience level, right? Because this is what we do all day, every day. We deal with expatriate tax, right? So it's really, really important to have somebody who knows how to interpret U.S. tax treaties, right? There's different treaties between U.S. and different countries. So you want somebody who knows that, first of all, who knows they exist, and number two, who knows how to read a treaty, because they are crazy. And the other thing that we're different is we like the big four accounting firms, they do this too, right? They focus on expat taxes, but what they focus on are expats that are part of a huge global mobility program, right? So they have a big corporate client, and then there's thousands of expats that they service. We serve the underserved community of expats. We service like the guy who met a girl in London and decided to stay, right? The person who's retiring because they want to give Portugal a try, right? Or the teacher who's in Vietnam and then goes to China and then goes to Japan. Like, those are the people that we serve. Those are our clients. So, and those are the people that are the most afraid because they don't have support in that manner. Whereas like people who are on an official tax assignment get support from one of those big companies. So like, I think it was 13 years ago, Expat Tax was born.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, to serve that underserved community.
That makes so much sense, because you're right, like when you're an individual and you don't have the resources,
Yep.
It's really overwhelming, intimidating, scary, and sometimes you just put it, like you kind of procrastinate, and then you end up paying so much more in fees because you're too scared to touch it. We have a few more comments here.
Yep.
So Liv says, do I file US taxes if I work for another country? But
yes.
So I think Liv is planning to move to London, I think she said. So
yes. So so the question is, when I move overseas and I work for, let's say, a British company, do I still have to pay taxes? And that depends on what Liv's nationality is. If she's a U.S. citizen going abroad, absolutely, because you're a U.S. citizen and you're taxed on worldwide income. If she's not, then there is a potential to break what we call break residency with the U.S. and not have a U.S. filing any longer, right? That it depends on citizenship, depends on if she may be a green card holder.
Oh, so if you're a green card, but then you lose your green card, right?
So if you don't want to break residency with the U.S. if you have a green card. I will tell you that. And your immigration attorney will tell you the same. They will say, if you're moving with a green card, you want to represent that you are a resident of the U.S. and file worldwide income. But that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to pay taxes in two countries, right? Because there's all sorts of expatriate concessions that an American abroad, a green card holder abroad gets. So it's not something to fear, but definitely your immigration attorney will say you need to keep filing as a resident. There are treaty positions that you can take, but an immigration attorney will tell you don't do that.
And I think there's a difference between filing and paying. You file your taxes every year, but you're not going to necessarily have to pay taxes. I think that's what the fear. And I know RoseMarie
correct.
will be available. Like, we'll share her contact details, so people have all, some where you don't want to share publicly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it's so complex, and for each person.
And it's hard to give tax advice to an individual when you don't know the background, right? I need to know the blueprint of that person's life, right? So it would be irresponsible of me to give specific tax advice.
Right. But it's still, this is great, general advice, because even I'm learning so much about all of this. I didn't, before you came on board as a sponsor, RoseMarie, I didn't even realize there were only 2 countries in the world that required you to, citizens and residents, to pay taxes when they don't live in the country, the US and Eritrea. So, we're
Yeah.
always learning, and it's so important to have
Yep.
these conversations.
Yep.
So then who else? Liv said, I will be a UK spouse on a UK spouse visa, so I will legally work in the UK. So I don't, again, I'll Liv definitely get in touch with RoseMarie so you can talk more about
Sure.
this. Yeah.
I think that's a better way to handle it.
Yeah. But keep asking any other questions, something specific. Yeah, Linda says she's a former expat in Australia and frequent traveler to London and Bangalore for work. Where do you live right now, Linda? Let us know. Yeah. Yes, Liv has another question. So she'll file even if you have $0. I'm assuming $0 earning in the US, you still have to file your taxes. But it again depends on your residency, right?
It depends on your situation.
Yeah.
It really does.
Then Lana says US tax system seems to be the most complicated globally, and it's also constantly changing. It is such a great mission to help navigate this maze. Thank you, RoseMarie, for supporting us here.
No, isn't that sweet? Thank you.
Very sweet.
That's very sweet.
And RoseMarie, all these comments and questions are right now live on our LinkedIn event page where we're streaming. So after this, you can go, connect with people, and if there's something specific, you can. But I love that. And I love how Linda's supporting us in the comments. She's saying, Liv, RoseMarie will likely cover this, but there's always ways to mitigate US taxes.
Yes.
You still have to file a US tax return reporting worldwide income, but certain code sections will allow for exclusions or
That's
tax.
correct.
Yeah. Linda, what is your background? Maybe she does taxes too, because she seems to know a lot, or maybe she's a US expert. Let us know in the comments, Linda, what you do. That's so interesting. And RoseMarie did say she's an American citizen who's moving to the UK.
So so then she has a filing requirement.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'll read this last comment and then we'll go on to the next question.
Sure. I have time. So
I like asking the questions in between because people keep the comments, so I don't lose them. There's so many comments. Rosalind said quite a few repatriates are repatriating because they have to rather than because they want to. There may be hardships, trauma involved. So having professional support, especially with taxes, is so helpful for us to understand. So that appreciate that. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's go on to the next question and then keep the comments going. This is so helpful, ladies, because we know because for you to give you a sense, RoseMarie, who's in the audience, what their hurdles and challenges are, right? And I love to make these very interactive, even though we can't bring people on stage right now. We're, it's still, at least RoseMarie and I know we're not just speaking to each other and to the walls. We have people listening to
That's okay. I would talk to you anyway.
You're so sweet, RoseMarie. Okay, so then my next question are, what are the most common mistakes you see expats making when filing taxes?
Okay, so the biggest mistake I've seen is taking tax advice from your Uncle Bob, like, or taking tax advice from TikTok or from okay, so this is, I'm going to step in a little bit of hot water here. We're taking advice from your domestic tax accountant. So if you're a new expat and you have a tax accountant and you're going overseas and he says, oh, I can do your tax returns. No, he can't. It's like asking someone who specializes in heart surgery to do foot surgery. Like a domestic accountant does not know how to deal with expat taxes. So that's like the biggest mistake. The other mistake is, it's something you actually alluded to, is sticking your head in the sand and saying, oh, I don't want to do this. I don't know how to do this. It's too difficult. Sticking your head in the sand is not a good way to go about life. I mean, it's not a good way to handle your financial future. It's not a good way to handle your tax future. So I think women sometimes feel like they don't know enough about finances and taxes and stuff. And that's just baloney. That's just not really taking accountability. I'm going to say it for what it is. You need to take accountability, understand your financial obligations, understand your tax obligations, and don't take advice from TikTok. Like, find someone who really knows what they're doing, right? And then the other mistake I see is missing deadlines. Just missing it. We all know what the deadlines are. We know them the same every year, right? April 15th, you have to pay your taxes. There is an extended deadline for expats to June 15th, but not to pay your taxes. Your taxes are still due no matter if you have an extension, right? And and along with that is thinking, oh, well, I didn't have to pay taxes last year, so I won't have to pay taxes this year. Oh, but you forgot that you sold a stock, right? In the beginning of January of last year, because now it's a year later and you're doing your taxes. So not the same as last year. So don't just assume same old, same old. Again, it's kind of the same thing. Have accountability, know your financial footprint and what may or may not be your tax reporting obligations. And just because, and I'm going to say this, and if there's nothing else that you hear me say, is just because you don't owe taxes, one, doesn't mean you don't have to file a tax return. Just because you know you'll never owe taxes doesn't mean you won't have penalties, because there are several different informational filing requirements that will never create a tax liability, but will create a penalty. So, and that's a common mistake. So you need to know what you don't know.
Those are all very helpful tips. Thank you for sharing that. RoseMarie has a question. Sorry, not RoseMarie, Rosalind. She wants. Can you see the question?
Oh yeah. Oh, this is the first time I saw the question. How far back can H&R Block Expat? Okay, so it depends on what your situation is, but obviously we can go all the way back. Do we need to go back would be the question, right? So, and that would depend on your situation. So there are people who are haven't filed taxes in years, and this is talking about Americans abroad. There are different filing programs and tax amnesty programs that the IRS has. So we can assess if you qualify for one of those programs, right? Different programs for Americans abroad than Americans here domestically. So we would take a look at that. And some of those programs only allow you only have to go back 3 years. So if you miss 10 years, you can only go, it's possible you only have to go back 3 years. So that's an area where we would really, really want to set up a consult, sit down and talk to you, and just be really honest with you and let you know what your risk is, right? What your risk is, what you're willing to risk. You know, some people want to go it a different way, and sometimes you have to pay penalties up front. Sometimes there's no penalty at all. It really depends on the situation, but no matter how far we have to go back, we can do it. Unless there's a legal issue. If there's a legal issue, then I will likely refer you to an awesome tax attorney.
I just put up, thank you, RoseMarie. I just put up Linda. She said she's a lover of expat taxes like you.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so that's, that explains why she was, jumping in. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Right. So keep the questions coming while I continue to ask RoseMarie my questions here.
And like I said, if you need more time, I'm good.
Thank you so much, RoseMarie. Appreciate it. The next question is, how do you simplify the process for clients so they don't overpay or get penalized?
So simplifying the process. The first thing is we do our best to make sure our clients meet our deadlines, right? And if anybody even registers for our service, we constantly communicate deadlines. So that's the first way to do it. I mean, I believe communication, constant communication is a way to ensure that you're not getting penalized, right? Assessing your specific situation is another way to make sure that you're not overpaying or you're not getting penalized. But simplifying the process is we have an easy online portal. Number one, you do a tax interview, and then we assess what documents you need to provide us based on your interview. We'll give you the list of the documents. You upload them through an online portal. Everything is in a secure portal. All communications go through a message center, so you don't have to like send 3,000 emails or try to find the last email you sent, and we don't have to figure out where all your documents are. Everything goes into an online portal, and it's a very automated process. Automated meaning we use Salesforce, and it's a very, very robust program. And I could tell at any point in the process what one of my advisors are working on and what the status is. I can see if a message has gone unanswered. So it's, how do I say this? I'm a little bit of a control freak. And so the process that we have is very streamlined. It's very controlled, and we monitor the process. And we try very hard to make sure that there's nobody falls through the cracks. We also have a amazing customer service team. So it's really not just me. It's not just your advisor. You're going to have a customer service rep. So I think really having your hands around a process is the best way that we make sure nobody overpays their taxes or gets penalized.
Thanks, RoseMarie, for sharing that.
Every time you disappear, I'm looking at myself. I don't like.
I thought this was such an important thing.
I don't like looking at myself, though. Can I shut it off?
Okay, I'll stay online. I was, and I'm also trying because we're also streaming on YouTube. So I know the comments showing up.
Okay, I got it. All right.
Comments showing up. If you don't mind me looking down on my thing, that's fine. Because I'm looking at stream on YouTube. Because besides LinkedIn, we're also going on YouTube, and I want to make sure that if there's anyone asking,
I'm joking. I can't. I'm not that horrified by the way I look.
You look great.
I did my hair.
That's imposter syndrome. That's imposter syndrome. When we look at me.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay, we'll talk about that another time.
Okay, so the next question is: are there any misconceptions about expat taxes that we often hear from clients?
A big misconception is, oh my God, I'm going to pay double taxes, right? Which is not true. Very, very rare that there's going to be a double tax situation. The other misconception, we kind of talked about it, is assuming that the expat that you met when you first came overseas told you didn't have to file if your income was under a certain threshold. And you said, okay, I don't have to file. Like that's a misconception. A lot of misconception is, oh, well, if I make, so right now the foreign earned income exclusion, which we really haven't discussed, but there is a concession that the U.S. gives to expats that earn income overseas, that if you make less than $130,000 and you qualify, you can exclude up to $130,000 of foreign earned income. And, back when I started, it was like 65,000, but like that gets indexed for inflation. So people think, oh, I earn less than that, and therefore I don't have to file. Big misconception. The other, we touched on this. The other misconception is if I don't owe taxes, I don't have to file on time. And the other one, which we haven't gotten to it, is there is, aside from income tax filing, there's a reporting requirement to report your foreign bank accounts. And there's a threshold that you meet, and then causes you to have this informational filing. And briefly, that filing, that threshold is $10,000. So, and the way it works is if you have more than $10,000 in a combination of bank accounts, then you have this reporting requirement. The misconception is people say, well, I have less than $10,000 in every bank account, and therefore I don't have to file. That's the misconception. You have to aggregate all your accounts together, your bank accounts, your checking accounts, your brokerage accounts, your foreign financial assets, add them all together. And if any point during the year they exceeded 10,000 together, then you have this bank account filing requirement. And that's the FBAR. And we can talk about that in more detail later.
Thanks for sharing that. Does anyone have any questions about what Rose? I know there's a lot of stuff here, but just drop it in the comments or the chat and we can address them as we move forward. Okay. The next one is, can you walk us through a typical scenario where an expat benefits from using H&R Block Expat Taxes?
So there's, let me think about, okay, so there's a few typical scenarios. So if somebody's a new expat, obviously we go down a certain experience, right? They're brandy new. We find out what state they lived in, where they're going, how long they're going to be there. Typically, in every scenario, if a client is new, they get offered 2 tax consults. One is a logistical consult where they meet with a client service representative who will get you through the logistics. Like, you know, if you have a question on the interview, do you have a question on the process? Do you have a question about a question, right? And they'll get you through that. And then once you get through our interview, we have enough information. You'll get assigned a advisor based on complexity, right? Because there's people who have a lot more experience, who can handle the very complex situations. And then that advisor will offer you a consult. So anybody new to H&R Block Expat Tax Services gets consults, 2 consults. If you have never filed before, like we talked, that's going to be a longer conversation, right? That'll be a different experience. But that will be the most beneficial offer that we can give you, because there's options that are available. And then when we have somebody who comes from a previous accounting firm, either their domestic accountant or one of our competitors, very often we will do a review of the prior year returns and determine, does this make sense? Why'd you file separate? You could file joint. Why did you take the foreign earned income exclusion when you could have done this? Like, so we'll go and do, you know, sometimes it's called the second look. I don't call it second look. It's due diligence, right? You do your due diligence. You look at what happened last year and you make recommendations. So those are a couple scenarios where someone can benefit. Obviously, I can't stress it enough. You know, the fact that we have the experience in this area. I mean, and we have a customer service team, right? It's not a mom and pop shop where, you know, mom is not getting back to you because pop is busy, you know, and retired. And so it's all on mom, right? We have a huge group of people who are supporting our people and our clients. And we are a smaller part of the broader H&R Block. Let's face it, we're a smaller part of the broader H&R Block experience and corporation. And sometimes we say we're the stepchild, but I wouldn't say we're the stepchild. I would say we're more like the wild child, right? We do things differently. And we are really, really focused on customer support.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that and, you know, simplifying how you work with people. And, you know, I think people listening right now, if they've had issues, I'm sure things are getting clearer. I just want to reach out to the audience again and ask them, currently, how are you don't have to mention names, but how are you paying your taxes? You know, do you do it yourself? Do you use an organization? Do you use like a individual? It's always, you know, it's interesting to know how people file their taxes. because I think that's a big issue, which we discussed earlier. When you move to another country or you repatriate, you lose the contacts you have, right? Like in India, when I had a chartered accountant, and I knew how things were done
Right.
there, and then you come here, and then like, where do I start? Who do I work with? And if you don't have a network, there's no one you can ask for referrals or recommendations, unless you belong to a community like the Expat Woman. You get to meet people like RoseMarie. But I'm just curious if people want to share in the comments what what are things you've done. So Liv, let's see what Liv is saying. Okay, here's a good question.
Would you recommending working with you this year if we're filing global taxes next year? Okay, so she's asking, she's 100% in the US right now. And does she recommend starting with us now, planning for next year? So what I will say is, I think it doesn't matter for this year's tax return, but, and I'm saying this, but if you get to know your advisor, you have the opportunity to ask your advisor questions in advance of moving overseas. And so there's some things that are really important to know before you move overseas. And while it may not impact this year's tax return, it could impact decisions that you make before you go.
Sorry, I was looking to see if there are any questions in the YouTube chat. So say someone decides, say Liv decides, like, I want to start, ask, like, kind of working with you, not filing her taxes. Would she have to pay you for your, having conversations? How does that work?
So what I will say is, technically, we charge a consult fee, but in general, many of our advisors will do like the first 15 minutes, 20 minutes and do a chit chat. But again, the problem is, if you're not a client and you haven't signed our client service agreement, it's very little we can tell you. That's not very generic, because it would be remiss for us not to ask all the questions.
Right.
And 15 minutes is just not going to cut it. So I think the best bet is to, yes, sign up, get an advisor assigned to you, and agree to a consult fee.
That's a great piece of advice. Liv, does that answer your question? Or if you have any more questions, just go ahead. I'm glad that, I think I'm very impressed, Liv, because you're being very strategic. Like, how many people actually focus on this part, right? When we move abroad, we focus on all the other things, and taxes take a back step.
That's true. That is very true.
Yeah. So this is really impressive that, you're thinking ahead. I just love it. All right. So let me hide this thing and go back to my questions. Okay. So what you already shared the scenario. Okay, so now we're going to talk about what are the most important 2026 US tax changes that Americans living overseas need to be aware of.
Honestly, there really wasn't much of a tax change for Americans living abroad. Like, when I mean that, I mean specifically for Americans abroad. We got the advantage of this, living overseas, you get the same advantages as Americans here domestically. There's an enhanced standard deduction. There's an expanded child tax credit. A nice thing is, seniors 65 and above are getting another deduction of $6,000 each, not each, for each senior, which is great, because seniors overseas, they're not working anymore. So they don't get that foreign earned income exclusion, because that's only available to people who are earning income. So now you've got seniors who have interest, dividends, they've saved their whole life, and they're living off investments or Social Security. So that's a really nice, I mean, if anything, that's the biggest benefit for Americans overseas, this bigger deduction that they never had before. The foreign earned income increased to $130,000. We mentioned that. There's now an itemized, not an itemized, a charitable contribution for people who don't itemize. So there's an extra $1,000 if you give to a qualified charity. If you're single, married, it's $2,000. And then there's a big discussion about the overtime pay being tax-free. That's really only available if you work for an American company and you're getting a W-2. And it really is only available for the overtime piece of the overtime. So the half of the time and a half, right? That's the piece that gets, excluded. It's only available to people who file single or married, which I don't understand. It's not available for people who file married filing separate, which a lot of Americans abroad do because they're married to a non-US spouse. So it only fits if you fit in that scenario. So that's basically just an overview of some of the changes.
Awesome. All right. So the next one is FEIE, and I forgot what it stands for, versus foreign tax credit. Which strategy tends to save expats more under the new laws?
So I never called it FEIE, but apparently a lot of people call it FEIE. But what it is the foreign earned income exclusion. And we've alluded to it several times. And somebody qualifies this under one of two tests, right? They need to be a bona fide resident of a foreign country with a foreign tax home. And a bona fide resident means from January 1 to December 31st. Or for those part-year people, they need to be physically, this is the physical presence test. They have to be physically present in a foreign country 330 days out of a 365-day period. So a year. But the caveat is their time in the other country generally has to be more than 365 days. So the move has to be sort of more than a year. It can't be considered short term. And if you meet those requirements, you get to exclude up to $130,000 of foreign earned income, working income, right? Working at a job. So people who are in a part-year scenario can get a part-year exclusion. So that's another misnomer for some people. They're like, oh, don't I get 130? Well, no, you get part of 130 for the year that you're overseas. So that's something that people misunderstand. They'll say, oh, well, I only made 70,000, but I can exclude up to 130. Well, yeah, not in the first year. And so that's the foreign earned income exclusion. And then, so your question was, what do you do? Do you do foreign earned income exclusion, or do you take a foreign tax credit? And so for people who don't understand what that means, what that essentially means is if you're working overseas and the local taxing jurisdiction, so we'll use Germany as an example. If Germany's taxing you, the US isn't going to double tax you. The US is going to give you a credit for the taxes paid to Germany. So the question is, do you exclude your income if you're under 130,000, or do you take a foreign tax credit? Like, both will reduce your income tax potentially to zero. And the answer to that is it really depends, and I hate that answer, but it really does depend what you do. And a good expat tax accountant will optimize it for you. They will say, we're going to do an optimization calculation. We're going to see what works. But a simple rule, I'll keep it simple. If you're in a high tax country, like the UK, right, or Germany, that tax is likely to be more than your US tax. So you can wipe out your US tax with this tax credit. So high tax country, go with FTC. Reason I say FTC is also, especially if you have kids. If you have US kids with Social Security numbers, you can get the advanced child credit. The advanced child credit, I'm not sure if that's the right thing, but there might be an ability to get a refund if you have dependent children. Also, if you want to contribute to a US IRA, you need to show income. If you exclude your income, You're not showing income. So for a potential tax planning retirement plan, you're going to want to go with FTC. And then, I mean, obviously the converse is if you're going to a low tax country where you're not going to be able to offset the foreign tax credit, because I'm just going to use Hong Kong as an example. Hong Kong's taxes are 15%. If your U.S. liability is more than 15%, let's say it's 20%, you'll only be able to offset 15%, and then you have this 5% tax you're going to have to pay to the U.S. If your income's less than 130,000, then you should exclude it. So there's some things to consider. Now, one thing I want to say is sometimes people who might be listening to this on playback, they may say, "Oh my God, I shouldn't take the foreign earned income exclusion." Like, that's not really what I said. In certain instances, you may not want to take the exclusion. So you can revoke it if it makes sense to revoke it, but you have to do that after speaking with someone who knows, because once you revoke it, you can't take it again for 5 years. And if there's a plan to move to a low tax country or a no tax country, then you lose that exclusion. So don't do that without talking to someone.
Wow, that was a lot of information, but thank you for simplifying it. Yeah.
Not simple. Really not simple, but I try.
Oh, you simplified it though. You kind of broke it down, which for us lay people is easier to follow. So Linda just left a comment. She said, "I agree with RoseMarie that you should have a U.S. consult before moving, so you're aware what's to come. And I will add, where possible, have a consult on the host country side as well. That way you have better understanding of how your income, deductions, assets play across both countries and filing obligations."
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Linda knows her stuff.
I hope you both connect. I'm sure you guys can have
she knows her stuff.
Yeah, we can have a good chat about expat taxes. I'm sure RoseMarie.
Oh, please no. We'll just chit chat and get to know each other.
Okay, all right. But you both love, you both have a passion for this, so maybe you can chat about something else. All right. So my next question.
I definitely don't talk about expat tax in my, private life. I'll tell you that much.
Okay. So there's a 1% remittance fee. Who does it apply to, and are there ways to minimize the impact?
This is going to go real quick. There's been a lot of discussion about that. It doesn't apply to U.S. citizens that are living abroad because, first of all, it doesn't apply to U.S. citizens. It does apply to green card holders, so you want to be a little careful. But essentially, this was for the person living in the U.S. who's sending money back home, right? They're going to, and I don't even know if this exists anymore, but they're going and wiring money like like through a Western Union or through some sort of other means that are not like bank-based transfers or electronic SEC transfers. It's really for those sort of scenarios where they're wiring cash home, through these other means. And that's for people who are not U.S. citizens. Okay, so that's really what that's about. Really not going to happen with Americans abroad.
All right, thank you.
And it's for funds coming out of the U.S. going overseas.
And I'm sure this again is so technical, but maybe,
it is
good for people to know, what are FBAR and FATCA? FATCA. In speaking with the expats, there's some uncertainty around these filing requirements. And I've also had concerns about the significant penalties for not filing.
Yeah. So remember I said about informational requirements, filings? FBAR is one of them. FBAR stands for Report of Foreign. Okay, let me get this right. Report of Foreign Bank Accounts and Financial Accounts. I think that's what it is. FBAR. It's not, doesn't really go with the acronym. And this is the way you want to remember FBAR. This is an anti-money laundering reporting requirement. Basically, the U.S. wants to know where the money's going. When it's, they want to know where Americans got their money, essentially. So it's a filing requirement. It's not done with the tax return. It's a separate filing, and it's a filing with, I'm going to get this right, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network of the United States Treasury. So FBAR is really called FinCEN, but the name stuck. FBAR and FinCEN is kind of hard to say. So FinCEN is really the filing, and the forms are FinCEN 114, FinCEN 114A. And it's a purely informational filing. There's absolutely no reason not to file it. It doesn't go with your tax return. It goes separate. And it's that threshold we talked about, the 10,000 threshold. That's the threshold. Once you exceed that, you have a filing. And the one thing that we didn't talk about is the deadline for that is April 15th.
Mm-hmm.
There's an automatic extension till October. You got plenty of time to make the filing on time. And if you don't, the penalties can be $10,000.
Wow.
If you forget to report one bank account. So now, is that going to happen for someone like, oh, I just forgot? Not if your intentions are, I just forgot, but if there's another malicious intent by not reporting your accounts, you could get caught up in something. So and we're still talking about FBAR. I just want to give an example. We're talking about if the combination of all your accounts exceeds $10,000 at any point in time in a tax year. So if you transfer $5,000 into an account in February and your other bank accounts have $6,000 in it, on that date, you exceeded $10,000. You have a filing. Doesn't matter that you had $2,000 at the end of the year. So that's something that people don't get right. And like I said, there's no point in not doing it. It's an informational filing. It doesn't create a tax liability. And then FATCA is it's from the Foreign Asset Tax Compliant. No, that's not it. Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act. That's what it stands for, FATCA. And essentially, you're reporting all the same amounts, and you're reporting them with your tax return, and you're reporting them on a Form 8938. There's some additional type of accounts that get included in the FATCA that weren't in the FBAR, but we don't have time to get into that. What I will say about that is the threshold for filing is way higher. Whereas FBAR is 10,000, FATCA is like 200,000 for a single person. There's intricacies about filing requirements that your accountant will know about. They will ask you about. But I will say, if you've been overseas for a long time and you have a pension, a foreign pension, that's a foreign asset according to the IRS. So you could fall into that filing. And it is a reporting requirement, and lack of reporting on an informational filing is also a $10,000 penalty potentially. So something to be concerned about.
Do we still have everyone's attention? Because this is getting technical. So if you need, for you, yeah. So if you have a comment or question, we're almost done. But I really appreciate this, RoseMarie. We're actually at 1 hour now.
I see that.
Oh, yeah. Boy. But if you're okay with staying on, we have a few more questions.
Yeah, I'm okay. It's fine. Yeah. I want to just check. Let me check that I don't have, let me just check my calendar real quick. Yeah, we're fine. We're fine.
Okay, good. We should take another 10 minutes, I think, max. I mean, again, and I also wanted to, hopefully everyone's attending the summit. RoseMarie will be a speaker at the summit. I know we haven't decided on finalize the topic for your presentation. So if anyone, there's something specific you want RoseMarie to speak about. I mean, she shared a lot here, but if there's anything else, let us know in the comments. What are some topics that will help her as well, or additional questions you want answered. The next question is, the IRS introduced a new form, the 1099-DA for digital assets. What do expats need to know about this?
This is real quick. The 1099-DA is similar. It's now a requirement by the IRS for digital brokers. who are, acting as digital brokers to issue a similar form as if you were buying stock, right? But this year, really the thing that you need to know about this is they're only required to report the sales. So you still have to keep track of how much you paid for the crypto, right? So they'll report the $1 million of sales that you had, but if you paid $2 million, you have to find and give the support for the cost of the basis, what we say, for that particular transaction. I think in 2026 they're going to report the basis, which means your original cost. They'll track it for you.
Thank you.
That's all we really need to know about that.
All right. And this one, I'm sure a lot of people will be interested to know. I read that the IRS is not going to issue refund checks anymore. Is that true for this year or moving forward?
So we just got recent information about this. So in September, they said they're not going to issue refund checks anymore, right? And unless there's some sort of waiver that you have and you meet certain conditions, which really an expat didn't really meet. And it seems there was a big uproar, and it seems they've relaxed the responsibility for this, and it's going to be a multi-year sort of phase in. So what's going to happen is if you don't have a U.S. account with a routing number and a bank account, you can still file your return. It will still get processed, but the IRS is now going to issue a notice, and I forget, I think it's called CP 53. They're going to issue a notice. They're going to ask you for bank account information, or a waiver, and I don't know what the form's going to look like. And maybe they'll include people who couldn't open an account overseas as part of the waiver. And that notice will ask for your bank account. If you cannot supply a bank account within 30 days, or you have a waiver, they're going to wait 6 weeks. They'll process your return, but they won't release a refund for 6 weeks. Something that people should know about, because people rely on their refunds, right? So that's one thing to know. If they don't hear back from the client, not the client, the taxpayer, they're going to wait the 6 weeks, and then they'll issue a paper check. If you give them a bank account, they'll issue the refund right away. So the takeaway here is try to get yourself a U.S. bank account, right? Or if you have a U.S. brokerage account, you can use that. I know that there's some credit unions that will give bank accounts to U.S. people. I think Chime might also do that. What I will say is H&R Block is going to be able to have a solution for our clients very soon. So if you file with us, you will get a bank account and an account with an account number, not from us. We're going to enter into an agreement with a third party, and we're going to help our people make that happen.
That's fantastic. That's a good piece of news, or good news, or whatever. Thanks for sharing that. And we're almost done.
I think we covered the next question that you're going to ask me.
Guidance, right? Yeah. See, you know the question. Okay, this is related to the summit, and I don't know if we have still, because it's over an hour. Maybe our guests have left, but they'll watch the replay. So you can let us know in the chat or comments if you will be attending the Expat Woman Virtual Summit. I am going to share the QR code for the summit so people could sign up for the wait list. Okay, but I'm gonna, Mike, and I'm gonna just have you on the screen right now, RoseMarie.
Okay.
You would love to hear, and I know how this went about the sponsorship. In fact, I got the weirdest thing right now. Someone just said they don't want to be part of my summit because I have a corporate sponsor. It was like, I was very surprised to just get that message.
Really?
And I think it's so important for them for us, it's like validation, having someone like you guys sponsor. But the story is you are an expat, you are a woman, and that's part of the reason, from our conversations, that you decided to advocate for the expat woman. So I was like a little surprised about that. But I just gonna have you solo sharing why did you decide to be a sponsor for the Expat Woman Summit? And I know you had to advocate for it. It didn't just say, yeah. So go ahead and share your story. And
so I think I kind of understand why maybe there might have been some hesitancy. Like, some people have like this strange feeling about dealing with corporate America. And I get that. But the reason that, so in all honesty, the reason that I wanted to go for this is because first of all, number one, I think that women make most of the buying decisions in the household. I want to support women. I'm a woman and I know how hard taxes can be and how confusing they can be. And I'm going to be really honest with you. When I went and advocated for working, this out and sponsoring, I got no hesitation at all because, the powers that be were like, go for it. We think this is great, because one of the things we're trying to do is we're trying to reach people on a grassroots level, not as a corporation, right? Because yeah, we're a corporation, but we're people first, right? Like you're not getting your taxes done by a corporation. You're getting your taxes done by me or by one of my advisors or by, someone like me. And we're people first. And I mean, that's kind of, and by the way, I didn't know you were going to ask me this question. I thought it was a different question. So I think that's why I advocated, because I want to help the people who don't really know about us. And I want to do more grassroots networking and grassroots organic growth. And so that's why I wanted to do that. And I also wanted to be part of a community. And I think you got a great community. I mean, I've been on some of the calls, and as a woman, I want to support, women who are living and working abroad, whether they have their own business or whether they're working for someone. And that was the reason why. I hope that answers your question.
That was you did answer my question. Why did you and H&R Expat Block want to sponsor? See, look at me. I'm like stumbling. Well, why H&R Block and you wanted to sponsor the Expat Woman Virtual Summit? And just to add to that, like, what has your experience been so far ever since you signed up to be a sponsor? Because I do also struggle as an immigrant woman of color.
Yeah.
Advocating for other women living abroad, I believe in corporate sponsors and regular sponsors, right? And I get a lot of ghosting and being ignored when I reach out to companies. And you've seen our community, you've seen the community of expat women. So I believe that when someone sponsors us, I go above and beyond to shout it from the rooftops. Not only because I see it as a win, and let me bring myself back on. I see it as a win-win-win, because one is that this financial sponsorship does help the Expat Women Virtual Summit because our tickets are free. We want to open it up to anyone living abroad. Two, we want our audience to get to know about services like yours. By you being a sponsor and coming on to this platform today, it's like a masterclass in expat taxes, so our audience learns about it. And three, we also want people to learn about you.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we don't just partner with anyone. We partner with people who we feel provide services, and especially when a woman like you who's lived abroad and believes in advocating for women, being helping them. Because if you don't figure out your expat taxes, how are you going to navigate your life abroad, right? How are you, like, I'm wearing the t-shirt, make bold moves abroad. Can you see? And that is part of it, like paying your taxes, figuring them out, can also then spare up your time or free your time to then do other stuff, like step into the career you want, or find get clarity on what you want to do, support other folks in your field. So my question was, like, how have you felt with because we do a lot of pre-summit promotion as well. So I just wanted to hear what your what your experience and feedback has been so far.
So what I will say is, the first thing I'm going to say is, you keep saying, I don't understand expat tax, but you kind of do. But I think I think you have your pulse on your people. And so I was very impressed that you did that, what would you call it? A question, or you did a poll, right? And then from there, you piggybacked off of that and then introduced our service. And to me, that's exactly what we're looking for: organic growth. And we weren't just a number to you. Like, we weren't just, oh, this person's sponsoring me. Like, you really wanted to make it successful. And so that's the feeling I got. And I'm going to tell you, like, last year I worked with some partners, and the reason I did not work with them again is because I felt like they really had no interest in our business. And I don't want to work with somebody who has no interest in my business. Like, I'm not going to just throw money and, you're going to throw a few banners up on the wall and that's the end of it. So I got a different feeling from you. I felt that you really wanted your community to be successful. And if they're successful, we're successful. If they use us, we can support them. So I just really kind of felt like, this sounds silly, but like a little bit of a kindred spirit with you, like knowing that you really were genuine. You want to help your community. And I mean, that's as simple as I can put it.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah. And yes, I do. And when someone, signs up like you guys, whether it's a small sponsor or big sponsor, I feel you've invested your time, your money, your energy, because being a sponsor, like, as you see, I get the sponsors really involved, right? We have the live streams. I do posts about you guys. You're going to be a speaker. So I want to make sure it's not just, as you say, just a number. And okay, on the day of the summit, we just threw up a banner. Because I feel people buy from people, right?
Exactly.
And right now, you are the face of, your H&R Block Expat Tax. So already,
so right now, but there's quite a bit of us that are advisors that are better than me. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're
right, and they
have
go through you, like
qualities.
people, right? I'm sure there's many more on your team, but it's always good to have like a face. Maybe somewhere down the line in the future after the summit, we can even have your whole team on, and we could do like another session so they people say who is part of the team. We've got to meet RoseMarie, but I really believe in find, like, as you said, really showcasing the company. And for there are 3 people who win from it: you, the expat woman, and our guests. And I can see already I didn't expect so many people to show up for this live stream, and the questions and the support. And I just, and again, it's our expats on different time zones, so only so many can attend. It's on a Thursday. So it's, for some people, it's almost like the weekend, because Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I really appreciate people showing up. I appreciate you staying so long to support us. So, and answer all the questions. My final question for you is, how can people connect with you? How can they make use of the consult? What can they do to support you and you personally, and H&R Block Expat Tax Services, because you've given so much of your time. You're making it possible for us to make the summit available for everyone for free. So what can we do, or how can people do, and how can they connect with you?
So that's a good question. What I will say is that a lot of people know H&R Block in the US, right? It's a very big brand name.
Right.
What they don't know is that we have a boutique group of people that service expatriates. So I guess what I would say is word of mouth, like, tell people about us. We have this incredible level of experience. I mean, it's funny, but even our own offices don't know we exist, right? So, we're working in that area as well, to educate our own corporation that, hey, we exist. So that's why we're doing this organic marketing. I just think, honestly, word of mouth to me is the best clients come through word of mouth. The
Right.
best clients come through referral. So
Yeah.
even if you can't use our services, but your Aunt Sally lives in the UK, if you could tell Aunt Sally, hey, I heard about this, that would be a big support. Get your friends to join the summit. If you see me post on LinkedIn, hit me up, connect with me. We share a lot of different information throughout the year. So I think that's the best way that, as you can see, I like to talk. So I have no problems chit-chatting with people. They want to talk to me. They have a quick question. I can always answer quick questions. But again, like I said, it would be inappropriate for me to give tax advice, without really doing a deep dive. Because one different fact that somebody left out could change the whole answer. So I don't know if that answered your question.
That answered the question beautifully. It did. And as I tell with all our sponsors or companies that partner with us, it takes a while, right? It's several touch points before someone works with somebody. Some people expect magical results, like, oh, we sponsored and now we're going to get all these clients. It's an organic process.
Absolutely.
People are getting to learn about you firsthand, and these videos will be up. People will be watching the replays too, which is why I love live stream. So we are going to end at this point. If anyone has any questions, I'll keep the live stream on from, I think this is the longest live stream I've done with a solo speaker. We do panel discussion.
Yep.
But this is the first one. So thank you so much, RoseMarie.
No problem. No problem.
H&R Block Expat Tax Services, and thank you to everyone who joined us live or watch the replays. I will share the links with RoseMarie so she can respond to any questions, and definitely connect with her. Connect with me if you're not connected. And I hope to see you at the summit. We'll have more opportunities to get to know RoseMarie, get to know me, etc. in our live events. All right.
And happy Valentine's Day tomorrow.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.